Oh, I'd love you to be inside the PMO right now, strategising as Alfred bears down. I mean, we've seen Anthony Albanese today say, look, I'm focused on governing, and as he should be and as he is. I don't doubt that for a second. But I think it was a mistake for him in today's media conference not to rule out an election for April 12, because there is no way he can go to Don Russell Drive, the Governor-General's residence, by late on Monday and call this election. It would be a terrible look, wouldn't it?
I think it's true. That's exactly how people would see it. And I think you need to have a weather segment on your program, because I don't want you to be losing viewers at Labor Party HQ as they drift to the Weather Channel. But I think that's right. It would be seen that way, and it'd certainly be portrayed by many commentators. Look, you and I have discussed this. I've always thought it's May. It could be wrong as early as Sunday, but I think that's still the most likely, especially after what we're seeing up north. You think
so? What date do you think still most likely?
Oh, May, anywhere in May. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I mean, as the campaign headquarters would be strategising this at the moment. Of course, you've got the benefit of incumbency. It's the Prime Minister's prerogative to go when he thinks is best. No one would blame him for that, and absolutely he should and he will. But he's got to get out of the bubble a bit here, because there's people, 4 million people in the direct firing line, or at least in the vicinity of Brisbane, affected by this. They're not thinking of an election. I don't think the Prime Minister is got anything but those people's interests at heart. But to not rule it out today, I don't know. I don't know what advice he's getting.
I think it's a very good point. Look, unless they're making some really hard political calculations about where the vote in Queensland is, but this won't be just about what Queenslanders think about it. So there's a lot of other people who will be judging him on that basis. So it's probably a hard decision, as you put to me. What happens when you're in that room? But that's the point. None of these dates are easy, because the polling is where it's at. That's the main point. And remember, most of the time, your pollster tells you, right, now's the time to go because you could win. He doesn't have that advice. It's all hard. And so it's just picking the best possible date. And I don't know that, calling it on Sunday is going to give him that best possible date because of all these other scenarios.
I don't think so either as well. I don't think so either, Yaron. And I've been thinking about how the date of calling the election is almost as important as election day itself, because I think the last four elections, at least the last two, have seen almost 50% of Australian voters, the available voting public, are voting before election day. So that first 2 weeks and the momentum can matter almost more than the last 2 weeks.
That's very, very true. And you start, if you're in a campaign mode, you start to think about, how am I calibrating my announcements? And it does change. So as we see, as you say, close to half voting before, they're calculating everything. And it does make it harder. It's not like the old days where you just thought, right, what have I got to save in that last week? And how exciting will I make it? And they can't do that anymore.
No, they can't. And the other thing to consider here is the budget. I mean, would it be so bad if you were in the Labor camp, and I know you're not, but just for one mad moment, just pretend you were, would it be so bad for Labor to go to a budget? They can tell a story. They can also dominate the news cycle with announcements they would have perhaps made in the election campaign anyway, and they get to remind people that they're in charge.
It's as if you were in the strategy room when we were thinking about what to do with the budget and election timing, because that's exactly how we saw it. You do have the opportunity to talk about things you want to. You're spending money where you want to. And the corollary of this is something that you and I have discussed previously. If he doesn't go to a budget and he actually cancels budget day, we already can see Peter Dutton making something of that about what's he hiding. And it would be a credible argument for Peter Dutton to say, what sort of taxes are there? Why won't he go to a budget? And that's the other part of not delivering a budget.
Yeah, that's right. Look, we've got all of this to look forward to over the next couple of weeks. And we're pretty much in a campaign anyway. I know you've just been in the US, and Oh gosh, where to start there? I mean, have you got any insight on exemptions or how any of that's going, or even the Trump 2.0 administration's view of Australia and our government at the moment?
So perhaps the best way of answering that is let's look at Ukraine. And the reality is it's messy. It looks really messy. But Trump is doing this so that he gets a result. That's what he's going to be worried about. That's what he thinks American voters, or particularly the people who voted for him, will care about. It really doesn't look good from our perspective as he goes through that, but he doesn't care to wear away some international political goodwill to get a result that domestically will be good for him. So if you see it in that context, he's thinking about his domestic voters, which is why what's more interesting is the reaction to some of the job cuts in the public service. Now that's one he needs to watch very carefully.
Oh, why do you say that? Where might that affect him? Because he's got 4 years.
He does, although the first time he's judged is in 2 years at the midterms. But some of the job losses, it's not like if you were to say, let's cut the public service and it's just going to affect Canberra. He's announced, for example, 6,000 job losses in the IRS, their version of the tax office. They're in states like Texas, swing states like Georgia, Pennsylvania.
So they're really decentralised. It's not just Washington.
No, it's not. And so he's got some Republican members of Congress who are not happy with the way it's been executed. Of course, in principle, they agree with slashing government waste. But on the way through, it's hard for them to talk to their constituents about why 1,000 jobs were lost at the Department of Veterans Affairs, for example, in another state. So that's probably the one that he will be more interested in keeping an eye on than the way Australia or Europe is looking at some of these international policy positionings.
Yaron, always great to talk to you. We'll see you soon.
Great. You too. Bye-bye.